petition by AbaThembu King Buyelekhaya Dalindyebo to be retried for a string of convictions. Well, the king is supposed to present himself at the Mthatha prison tomorrow after his bail was extended last week. However, his legal team says he won't pitch tomorrow to start a 12-year sentence for charges including arson, kidnapping and assault, as they will file a formal application for his bail to be extended yet again. Let's cross live now to our reporter Patricia, who's been monitoring the media briefing for us in Pretoria. Good afternoon, Patricia. Welcome to the SABC News Desk. Is it the end of the line for King Buyelekhaya Dalindyebo? What happens to him now?
Well, good afternoon. Well, I'm not sure whether we can say 100% that it is indeed the end of the road for the king, but it seems like when we read between the lines what the minister did say, it is in fact that we can actually conclude that it is perhaps the end of the road, and tomorrow he'll have to abide by the law and report to the correctional services in Mthatha. But just to bring you back to basically what the minister did say as to why he rejected the petition, why he dismissed it, and he went back to basically really just paint a very clear picture as to what are the points that were stipulated in that petition. And he said that there were basically two main points that were argued, and the one was based on the assessors. Basically, when the trial started, the judge in the presiding matter had two assessors. One assessor then died, so he was not replaced, and of course the judge continued with the matter to the point where a conviction was met and he was sentenced. And on the other matter, of course, the other point rather that was argued was on customary law. Now, the minister said on both the points that were stipulated in that petition, he could find no further evidence that could suggest that the king's trial was unfairly influenced by, for instance, the fact that one of the assessors had died and the judge continued with the trial. The minister said by law, the judge has the prerogative to decide whether he does replace the assessor or rather whether he continues with the matter. And of course the judge, he practiced his discretion and he decided to continue with the matter. And the minister says that is within the framework of the law. The judge was not wrong by doing that. It was his prerogative to do so. The law allows him to take that step in that direction. And of course, on the matter of that, the king argues that the customary law grounds were not considered. The minister also said that he found no evidence that suggested that the law did not take its course. He feels that everything in the whole matter, the whole trial, was conducted in a constitutional manner. And although the customary law did not matter that much, the Constitution is still the highest institution, and that had higher precedence. And he feels that is how the whole case, the whole matter was concluded. And he feels that having perused all those points, he came to no point but to dismiss the matter, and he felt obligated on a point of law to agree with what the court had found.
Patricia, it's quite interesting that the king hasn't brought up the death of the assessor before this point. We're hearing of it right now. And it's quite interesting to know that the king's right to a fair trial, he's saying it was infringed because of a lack of competent lawyers. But at any given time, he had 11 legal representatives.
Exactly, and that's what one of the points that came out, that the minister feels that he had a fair trial with all the evidence that was brought forward. The evidence was handled in a correct manner. And one of the other interesting points that Minister Michael Masutha did highlight was the fact that some of the pointers that he highlighted within the petition he did not bring up during his trial. And that he had actually exhausted all the courts in the country to the point where he elevated the matter up to the Constitutional Court. And he did not mention that at the Supreme Court of Appeal when he appealed his case. He did not mention the fact that he feels that the trial was not constituted properly, that he had an unfair trial, and that the matter on the customary law evidence, he feels that should have at least shown some lenience for him. But the minister said he had a fair trial. He at no point brought up these matters. Only when he went to the Constitutional Court did he now try and stipulate those points. But he was supposed to perhaps bring those points forward, at the lower courts before he even went to the Supreme Court of Appeal and ultimately ended up in the Constitutional Court.
Well, the King's customary law argument that would have held some legal traction perhaps had the traditional courts bill been passed by now. We know that isn't the case. We know the King's lawyers are now going to try and have his bail extended. If they're not successful, can police go in and take the King into custody tomorrow already?
Well, I guess in a matter like this, no one is above the law. And that's exactly what the minister alluded to, although he did not really give us a clear answer when we asked him whether the King will have to report to correctional services tomorrow. But, reading between the lines, basically what the minister is saying is that, the courts have run their course. And him as the minister, he has fully exhausted Section 327, which obviously allowed him or gave him as the minister the powers to peruse the petition. So if the courts have concluded the matter up to the point where the highest court has been petitioned and the minister has actually looked at this petition and rejected it on points of law within the framework of the Constitution, then you ask yourself the question, what else is left? Of course, we were playing around the possibility of a presidential pardon that could be his last resort. But the minister also answered that question by saying that a presidential pardon exists of 3 points, and that is the courts, and then it gets elevated to the minister, and the minister ultimately on points of recommendations, if he finds that there is necessary grounds and evidence that suggests that a presidential pardon is a possibility, then he takes it to the president. But he says upon perusing the matter, even for that, he did not see any evidence that he can actually say that on this ground, I'm going to take this matter and extend it to the president so that he can peruse it for a possible presidential pardon. So if the petition is rejected, the courts have run their course, and of course a presidential pardon is not on the cards, then what other alternative is there? I guess we'll have to wait whether to see whether his bail extension will be approved tomorrow, and if it is, on what grounds exactly, and what is it that they're hoping to do with that extra time? What other courts or what other legal avenues that perhaps were not communicated today are there that they still want to exhaust?
That was our reporter Patricia joining us from the Justice Ministry press briefing that has just wrapped up in Pretoria. Well, we're still on that story now. Let's cross to our reporter Dave Gobo. He's on the line from the Eastern Cape. Good afternoon, Dave. Welcome to the News Today desk. The King's lawyers, we understand, now approaching the NPA. What can you tell us?
Yes, good afternoon again. What I can tell you is that the latest developments are that the local NPA office did scrutinize this court order purported to have been issued by the Supreme Court of South Africa in Johannesburg. It says that it believes that this document is fraudulent and that they are going to follow it up with the aim of bringing charges against whoever was responsible for authoring this document. For instance, they are saying that the stamps on this court order are not the same as their own stamps in the justice system. So they are following this up. In addition, they are saying that they are expecting the king to hand himself over to the correctional services tomorrow, as per the court court order or warrant that was issued when he applied to have his bail extended.
All right, if the king does not voluntarily hand himself over to the Correctional Services Centre, what is the process that the NPA will follow thereafter?
It says because the warrants, everybody who was involved in that matter, that is the king himself, his lawyers, the police, as well as the NPA, has got copies of the warrant, which says that the king must hand himself over to the authorities tomorrow. They are saying that is what they are expecting. If he does not do that, he says that the NPA says the police will act automatically by arresting him.
So in other words, if he does not hand himself over, they will put into effect that arrest warrant, send in the police to take him by force if necessary.
Exactly, because they say the warrants have been signed already.
All right, thank you. That was our reporter Dave Gobo on the line to us from the Eastern Cape. Moving on to other news now. Much of South Africa remains